What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about why it would be a bad idea to underestimate Microsoft going into this next generation. And I see a lot of similarities between what people are saying about Microsoft and what people were saying about Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch. There's so many similarities. And really, it's based off of what they did the previous gen. It's like the lowest common denominator when it comes down to it. Now, there are some more intricate arguments against what Microsoft is doing, or there were even more arguments against what Nintendo was doing based off of things. But a lot of it was rooted in the previous failures of what the systems did before and not the changes that they're actually making to the system or to their structure in order to be more competitive. Now, if you look at it when it comes to Nintendo, just having a little bit of a flashback here, everyone said that the Nintendo Switch was going, not everyone, but people said that the Nintendo Switch was going to fail because of the Wii U, because of how bad the Wii U was, right? It was underpowered. They didn't have enough third-party support. There were issues with the name of the system. I mean, people were sitting there and saying those things, and it was really all just based off of that. They didn't think about, well, how did Nintendo do with the 3DS, right? The 3DS was successful, so if you have a system that can replace the 3DS and can also replace like the home console aspect, and Nintendo gets their developers who make games on 3DS to also make games on their home console because they didn't have that with the Wii U, then you can probably have a system that more people buy. And that's exactly what happened with games like Fire Emblem, Pokemon, and Animal Crossing, which were 3DS games actually coming over to the Nintendo Switch and being full console games. And the people who did make videos and say that, oh, Nintendo was going to fail or they're doomed or whatever the case is, had to really like wait to the last point to say, all right, I was wrong on that one after the huge blockbuster sales of the Switch. And I kind of feel that even though the Xbox One wasn't as like nowhere near as like unsuccessful as the Wii U when it comes to system units sold. The Wii U only sold what, 13 million, not even 14 million, whereas the Xbox One, from what we know, is over 50 million units sold, which would be more than the Super Nintendo, right? So that's a lot of systems being sold. But when you just compare it to the PlayStation 4 and even the Nintendo Switch right now, obviously a bit lackluster considering the stature of a company like Microsoft. But a lot of people are just basing it off of what happened with the Xbox One. And I think that that is a huge mistake because Microsoft has been making a ton of changes and adjustments. One, everybody, or not everybody, but most of the people who were calling the shots for the Xbox One are not there. Don Matrick and the people that were calling most of the shots are gone. In is Phil Spencer, who has taken better part of what, 4 years plus, trying to create this new structure and this new attitude at Microsoft. They've been purchasing a bunch of studios to become first-party Microsoft Game Studios labels, right? So they've got the developers from Hellblade, they've got Ninja Theory, they've got the developers who made one of the Game of the Year candidates with The Outer Worlds. Yeah, they've got them, Obsidian. So they've got these big developers that know how to make really good games, that know how to make, I would say, high Metacritic style games that are going to get people interested in your system. And it doesn't really matter to me that it's also on the PC because that's also Microsoft as well, and they have the Game Pass Ultimate, so they're trying to get people to buy Windows and all of that. So to me, it doesn't really matter. It's just a Microsoft first-party studio that's going to make exclusive games for Windows and Xbox. So they have those studios. They bought a lot of them, and they're continuing to make games. They've been making games. We've got Hellblade 2, whatever the next Outer Worlds game that's going to come out, that's going to be there. So they've been gearing up for that next generation, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that we see with Microsoft. They're taking the first party studios way more serious than they've ever taken it since the Xbox 360 era, in my opinion. They're really doing a good job with that by getting all those studios and by also, I would just say, perpetuating the value aspect. Despite me not loving Game Pass, the structure that they've built with Game Pass and being able to get their first party games and having the strongest hardware with the Xbox Series X, which was a thing, guys. You have to remember, one of the big things was The PS4 is stronger and it's also cheaper than the Xbox One at launch. It's going to get all the third party blah blah blah. Like, that was all there, but you can't have that angle this time with the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series X. And Microsoft even has a fail-safe plan if maybe it's a bit too expensive for people. They have that Xbox Lockhart system that's rumored to be cheaper, but still a next generation power type of system to where you can play games in 1080p and 1440p. And after playing The Last of Us Part 2 with 1440p on a PS4 Pro, that looked absolutely amazing. So developers are still going to be able to create next-gen looking type of games with that type of hardware, with the leaked specs that we've gotten with that. And I think that the Xbox One, that's still a very capable system itself. The Xbox One X, for example, with its 6 teraflops of power. So I think there's plenty of power when it comes to all of these modern systems Microsoft has made, but they're doing a good job with a tiered plan when they do finally reveal that Xbox Lockhart system. So underestimating them and kind of sitting there and saying they don't have the first party games and they don't have enough and all of that is a bad idea. Plus, guys, they've got franchises too. Like, people talked about this with Nintendo when it came to it. Oh, it's not enough, third party this, third party that. But with Microsoft, it's first party. But they've got the first party games. They've got Perfect Dark. They've got Fable. They've got different franchises that they can go and bring back that are going to get people excited. And it's not like they really have to reinvent the wheel with these franchises. There's already games out there that can let them know how to do it. You want a new Perfect Dark? Well, there's stuff like Cyberpunk that they can look at. There's stuff like Borderlands that they can look at in terms of gun customization or having options. But I think Cyberpunk is a type of game that they can look at and say, okay, Perfect Dark can be kind of like this. Or there's numerous other first-person shooters that have done extremely well that they can look at and make a new Perfect Dark game with, if they're not already doing that. You can also look at Fable, right? Fable is a type of game that just take what we've got already. The Witcher 3's been out for such a long time, right? Look at stuff like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which we already see other games like Horizon Zero Dawn kind of taking some inspiration from what they did there, and other titles as well with Legend of Zelda. So all they have to do is look at The Witcher 3, look at Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which both of those games have been out for multiple years now, and they can make a really cool Fable and put their own little spin on it as well. So to me, Microsoft does have the franchises to compete. They have the structure to compete, and they're going to have a price advantage with this cheaper system. Because if you look at what Sony's doing with their PlayStation 5, the digital edition and the retail edition, they can't really price those two too far apart, because I think spec-wise they're going to be exactly the same. So you're not saving a ton by removing that Blu-ray drive, right? So I don't really think the specs when it comes to it are going to be different. I mean, there might be different size allocation for the hard drives or the SSD, so that could be a thing, but I'm not really sure it's going to be a significant type of deal. So I think with Microsoft, they are going to actually have a significant gap between the power and also between the price. So Microsoft could hold the advantage there as well, having a cheaper system that's still going to get you good power and good performance, but then also having a higher powered system that's obviously costs more, but is the strongest system on the market for that true 4K and better frame rates and all of that. Although, don't get me wrong, Sony's going to be great too with their PS5. It's going to be able to be just fine, and most of the third-party games are going to look exactly alike for the most part, but they do have those options for consumers out there, and they've been working on games, guys. They bought so many of those first-party studios. They've been working on games, and they're going to have some good stuff. Now, I do want to leave on this because Phil Spencer recently said that after watching the Sony press conference or the Sony PS5 reveal, that he feels good about what they have. So Phil Spencer has been known to kind of say stuff like this is going to be the greatest year for Xbox first party, blah blah blah. He's been saying that type of stuff, which technically he's not wrong, but the bar was so low for what they've done the previous year because of how they messed up in their games. So yes, they probably got better and better each year, but at the same time, it wasn't really up to where Nintendo and Sony, what they were doing for the years and their first party games. But it wasn't necessarily impressive. But I think now at this point, with them working on the next generation for so long and them buying all of those studios and actually having accomplished good studios like Ninja Theory and Obsidian on track here to make games for the Xbox Series X, I think this is where Microsoft really says, okay, it's not going to be a beatdown like we got with the 8th generation. And even with the start of the generation, with the Switch passing up the Xbox One so quickly in sales. So they're saying, okay, wait up here, hold up. We're going to have something to show for you guys coming up here. Now, does that mean that Microsoft is going to outsell Sony by a lot and crush Nintendo or anything? Absolutely not. Look, I'm going to be getting the Xbox Series X day one if I can. I'm going to do my best to pre-order it, and I think that they're going to do fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that relates to them absolutely bodying everybody and anything like that. I just think that it's going to be more balanced this time around. It's not going to be Sony stomping a mud hole in Microsoft like they did back at E3 2013. Sony stomped a mud hole in Nintendo too with the Wii U. So it's not going to be like that. It's going to be much more even. I can see it kind of being like the 7th generation, where Sony and Microsoft were pretty much neck and neck once Sony got going. And then the Wii was obviously, just way out there. And I think I kind of see the similarities with the Nintendo Switch, since they got a pretty big head start, and they're going to have the price advantage with it only being $200, and there could be a price shock within the next year or so. So to me, I kind of see it more like the 7th generation than the 8th generation of systems. So what are you guys' thoughts when it comes to what Microsoft is doing here? Do you feel that people are underestimating them? You think people aren't? You think Sony's still going to slap them up like they did before? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.